not.
Hi, Dr. Hancock. So this is our broadcast for Virginia Woolf's piece. What does Woolf mean when she says that a woman needs money and a room for her own to write? And how do these things enable writing? You can't see Britta, but she is on the phone.
Stuck in traffic, but she's with us.
She's with us, and I will put it right here so you can hear her comments. Okay. So, let's begin.
Okay, so first off, we would like to mention that there was 2 different readings that various people in our group read from. Some read from the book, and some read from the link. So we're just bringing that all together in this discussion.
Yeah. Britta, did you read from Canvas or did you read from the book?
Experience first.
Did you read from Canvas or did you read from the book?
I read from the book.
Okay. Oh, so we just discovered that there was a link on Canvas that leads you to
Chapter 1 and 2.
Yeah, because we have to read chapters 1 and 2. But that's cool. I feel like there were answers in the book for this question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, let's get started. Does anyone want to start with their thoughts first?
I would. Okay, so I read the thing, and just in the what does Virginia Woolf mean when she says that writing? I didn't really see anything in particular where she right, but I see as a she didn't say she was the character, whatever person, but the person that was the woman that was observing men and the way they worked. She was observing how men before them had left money and day, and how men were the ones able to go into libraries. A woman couldn't go unless was because I guess only men that they did in the library, and so it's interesting to see how
you keep cutting off.
Oh, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the connection, but you'll like talk and then it'll go off and cannot hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now? Okay, maybe it's just because I was far away. I'll just repeat what I was saying. No,
we heard like going into the library and women weren't allowed to go into there. And
okay, yeah, and I think what stood out to me most was just how she was showing all the resources that men have and how they have a place where they are supposed to be, where they are taught how to study, what to study, and they are taught how to write. And they have like all of these resources at their hands, which makes writing for them easier because they already have everything laid out to them from their past, from past men in the past. Whereas women don't have, mentioned this a little bit, how women were not allowed to have money. And when they were allowed to earn money, it was never really theirs. It was always saved from their husband. I guess the husband owned it. So like women weren't able to give scholarships or provide fellowships for women, for other women. Like, and all of this together like makes writing easier because you get to get access to a vast number of I guess books, topics for them to draw on for writing.
Nice. I guess 2 things that came to mind as well. In the reading that we did in the book, there was a part there where it was talking about how men of before the 18th century like were able to write and things like that. And she kind of muses about, oh, well, what were women doing this whole time? How come they didn't write anything? And I guess the thing that stands out to me is when she says that at any rate, by the 19th century, self consciousness had developed so far that it was the habit for men of letters to describe their minds in confessions and autobiographies. Their lives also were written, and their lives were printed after their letters were printed after their deaths. And so from that, I kind of thought about how the reason why we know so much about what men were doing was because they were able to write, going back to that education, being able to go to the library, being able to receive that knowledge that men were afforded. But for women, that wasn't the same. And at the bottom of the page, it says, in the first place, to have a room of her own, let alone a quiet room or a soundproof room, was out of the question. And so a lot of times, women already had their lives planned out for them. And at the very beginning, she kind of looks up a definition in the history of England by Professor Trevelyan's, and it talks about what his definition of a woman was during about the 1470 time, which is like women or men were able to beat up their women. They were able, their daughters were given, they weren't given a choice of marriage. They were told who they were supposed to marry and stuff like that, and how 200 years later, like not much had changed in the sense of that. And so to answer the question, get to my point, what I think she means is that a woman needs that kind of space to be able to write her history, to write what she's doing, and to be able to allow generations or history to be recorded about what women were able to do. And I think the part that I was thinking of, the second part, she talked about two things: the angel of the house and telling the truth about her own experiences as a body. And I was kind of thinking about being secluded in a room or just kind of having your own space to think allows you to kind of get out your own truths. But then she says when you do have your own space to think, that the killing angel of the house or your own personal doubts and things that hold you back creep in and kind of stop you. Or at least that's what I was thinking. I don't know, that's a lot. Britta, do you have any ideas?
One thing that I found out was when she was talking about that she had at the college, and she compared the luncheon that she had at the college to the dinner that she had at her boarding house or wherever it was in the evening, and she compared it. She asked the question later, and I don't remember if it was in the chapter 1 or 2. She said, why do men have wine and women have water? And so I thought about that, and then she also talked about how I'm getting out of my car, but I think it's too windy.
Please don't crash.
What?
Please don't crash if you're driving.
I'm sorry? Sorry.
Don't worry.
Okay. So I was thinking about that, and she said in there, like to live well, to love well, and something is to die well. And so I was thinking about that there's this disparity between wages that a woman can earn as opposed to men, and how women, by not having a lot of money or means to money, they always have to worry about, what they're eating, they have these other concerns, like more temporal concerns, whereas the men, they have access to money, they have access to education, and So they have more free time to think about things and to write. Whereas women, they're more constrained by the day-to-day things that they need to take care of because they don't have, the access to libraries, or at least the library that she wanted to go to. And they don't have money to keep them, in comfort. So the things that I thought about when I was reading all of this.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I agree with Rita.
Well, I read from the textbook, so I wouldn't agree. Kidding.
No, I think there was another part in here where she was talking about reach, what you were talking about when she was questioning like what were women doing that you weren't writing? Like, how come you didn't set? I felt like she was kind of at first when I first read that sentence, it felt like she was kind of saying like, why weren't you guys setting this foundation for us to build upon and like leaving all the hard work for us? But then as I read through it, she was talking about particularly about this one lady who's had 13 children. And she was saying, no person, no one can go into business and take care of 13 children. No one could handle that. And so she was saying like, she could understand why she's like, if you think about it like this, like there's 9 months of the pregnancy, and then there's the 4 months of feeding it. And then from 1 to 5, you have to play with the kid and you have to teach it because that's when it's most like, it needs to be taught the most. Like that's where it's getting everything in. And so she was saying like, women were doing, I felt she was saying, women, we were doing our duty. We were doing what was needed at this time. But like, so that's why men were able to write because we gave them the time and the peace to write.
And I think because like at that time, like women were like viewed as just like the primary caregiver, or whatever. We do like cleaning and everything, while as the man is just like to work, provide the money, and that's it. So they have more, like you said, they have more time and space to have time to write a book instead of like playing with your kids or come and clean the dishes.
Yeah.
All of that were for women at that time. So well, money to publish their book. How could they publish it? Stuff they don't have no money. There's no because of the responsibilities that it's upon our shoulders as a woman. Just get to do all that because it won't do it.
And I feel if you look at most of the women that have written, that wrote in the past, a lot of them were like, they were the exception to the rule. Like they had fathers that like encouraged them to learn, like, and who wanted them to be educated, or like some of them were just so strong-headed that they fought for their own right to be educated and they decided to learn like men learned. But they always had like...
But also with the women writers who came before, the women writers from the Renaissance and the Romantic and whatever, they also came from families as well. So again, there was that no need to worry about money. So, I mean, there might have been a few, but for the most part, the women writers that we know came from wealthy families, so they didn't have to worry about, where their next meal was coming from, or, taking care of kids, or taking care of this.
None of them were
Well, yeah.
Weren't a lot of them single?
In the book, I don't like. Is there one of the girl? She ran away.
Yeah.
Because she was set up to marry this guy that she doesn't like and stuff like that. So he ended up suicide. But she has the gift to write.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have that space. Back to that space.
That was kind of her, like, her musings about what if Shakespeare had a sister, and Shakespeare's sister was like this awesome writer and stuff like that. And so she was kind of comparing the two, how his life would have gone and how her life would have gone. And obviously, like, going along with what Britta was saying with the disparity, like, obviously he went on, was able to progress, get a job at the theater, and then eventually start writing and moving and progressing in that way. But her life was to have that hope and dream in her heart, but doesn't matter if she was her dad's favorite, she was never gonna be given that time to write and do all those things because, like was said earlier, they would have interrupted her and say, hey, the dishes need to get washed. Hey, go hang the washing. Or what are you doing messing with books and things like that? That's not a future for a woman. And so it would have, it would have not amounted to anything. And as we say at the end, it was kind of like, in the end, she commits suicide because she has this burning desire to write something, but she can't get it on paper. She can't get it out because women aren't considered to have a voice. But I think it's funny, or well, I thought it was funny when I was reading through it, and there's a part, the way I took it was that even though all these men are like, oh, what are you doing, woman? And she's kind of like, well, while you were off sailing the shores and finding all these things, guess what? We raised you. We gave birth to you. We're the ones who taught you through the beginning of your life so that you could have that experience. And so the thought that came to me was, how does the world become a world of man if women are so important in raising the children and helping them to develop their identity and who they are? So a part of me was kind of like, well, then it's our own fault because we're ingrained in this society and we go along with it, almost like we allow it to happen, even though we're like, oh, we have a voice, we want to be able to say this, but we're enabling the society or how this life was for them back then. Well, that was my thought.
Well, I think also if you look at it, like a lot of times once the boys reached a certain age, they were taken away from their mothers and they were taken to tutors or to their fathers to like be brought up in the man's way of learning or whatever. And the girls were left at home with the mothers. So like all they knew was no, and then the boys actually got to learn and their fathers told them where their place was and what was expected of them.
You remember the person?
George Eliot?
Yeah. So it mentioned in the book here, so like some of them were able to write, but then they use men's names,
pseudonyms.
Oh, yeah.
All the victims of writing the name of a man.
Yeah. That's the only way they could write and be taken seriously. Like they could write, but they would not be taken seriously or given the same amount of credit that a man would have been given if he had written the book.
Yeah, I think she mentions it in the book that where is it, page 2271, where the indifference of the world, which Keats and Flaubert and other men of genius have found so hard to bear, was in her case not indifference but hostility. So the world did not say to her as it said to them, write if you choose, it makes no difference to me. The world said with a guffaw, right? What's the good of your writing? And so here she was kind of saying the same thing, like, men were allowed to write, but people didn't really care. They were indifferent to whether or not men wanted to write. But if a woman was to write, they were kind of like, oh, what would you add? What do you have to share?
Another thing in here, kind of going along that there's this part in here where she's talking about here it says rich people, for example, are often angry because they suspect that the poor want to seize their wealth. The professors or the patriarchs, as it might be more accurate to call them, might be angry for that reason partly, but partly for one that lies a little less obviously on the surface. It's like I feel a little bit that like they don't like how rich people like, hey, that's my money. And like men with the patriarchs and the education are like, hey, that's my education. Go do yours. I can't think you women think you shouldn't do men stuff. It's like, you think I want to stay at home with the kids? You come and handle business.
But if you have your own room, you can have your own room.
No, but like, it was funny to me reading that one. It's like, that's another thing why women need their own space, need their own room and their own wealth, is so that they can decide how they will use it. Because according to Virginia Woolf, a man would never, not so much as allow, but they would I feel they wouldn't know how to allow or how to support a woman that's trying to do all of that writing.
Yeah, that's true.
They'd be like, I don't know.
I know some men are too grateful if he supported the wife and then the wife were better. Theory.
Oh my gosh, there's this really funny movie called, and this is so off topic, but it's kind of on. It's called Saint Trinians Part 2, and the whole plot of the story is that it turns out that Shakespeare was actually a woman who, for the longest time, was pretending to be a man, and that was the secret that the Society of Men would not allow. They did not want anyone to know that Shakespeare had been a woman. Look at you.
Yeah, that's cool. I should watch that. Saint Trinians?
Saint Trinians Part 2.
Nice.
It's like a comedy.
Cool. So one other thing, if you guys want to follow along, it's kind of long, but it talks about another reason why a woman, but even like just a poet needs money in a room. But it's on page 2274. It says, I hope I am not giving, that's not it. Oh yeah, I hope I am not giving away professional secrets if I say that a novelist's chief desire is to be as unconscious as possible. He has to induce himself in a state of perpetual lethargy. He wants life to proceed with the utmost quiet and regularity. He wants to see the same faces, to read the same books, to do the same things day after day, month after month while he is writing, so that nothing may break the illusion in which he is living, so that nothing may disturb or disquiet the mysterious nosings about, feelings around, dots, dashes, and sudden discoveries of that very shy and elusive spirit and imagination, the imagination. And then when she says that, be that as it may, I want you to imagine me, so Miss Woolf, writing a novel in a state of trance. I want you to figure to yourselves a girl sitting with a pen in her hand, which for minutes and indeed for hours she never dips into the ink pot. And so that thought came to mind about the importance of having a space to write, to be able to be caught up in not a trance and not a drug induced trance, but just a space to be able to think of what to write and how to write. Because she talks about her experience when she was writing, that she was able to write what she wanted, put a penny stamp on it, and then put it in the mail and send it off to be looked at. And then she got paid for it, for reviewing other people's writings. And so to have money, you can support yourself by just sending off letters to, editors and things like that. But to have the room and the space to help you to be able to think of what to write was something that she felt was important, so that you can be in an illusion.
Oh, go, Britta. Hello, Britta?
Yeah.
Okay, were you about to say something?
Was I about to say something?
Yeah.
No, but
okay.
I will.
Okay.
No, I heard just feedback. No, Rach, if you look on that same page that you were on, it says here that men, her reason told her, would be shocked. The consciousness of what men will say of a woman who speaks the truth about her passions had roused her from her artist state of unconsciousness. She could write no more. The trance was over. Her imagination would work no longer. This I believe to be a very common experience with women writers. They are impeded by the extreme conventionality of the other sex. For though men sensibly allow themselves great freedom in these respects, I doubt they realize or can control the extreme severity with which they condemn such freedom in women.
So true.
No, but yeah, I feel like that's the whole idea behind the answer to the question is that it's not the whole idea of having a room to themselves and wealth for themselves to spend on their writing. Is more the idea that they have freedom with which to do writing and to be supported, or to be like not to be condemned by men, and that would help free up the women to be able to write. And that's how a room, and wealth would enable writing.
Nice. Sorry, Britta, go ahead.
I was just as what you were, saying stuff. Because I don't remember reading that. Was that on the link for the brown canvas or?
Oh no, this one was in the book that I read.
Maybe I just read it specifically. But anyway, what I was thinking was that when you have a space just with no interruption, like ideas come, quicker. I mean, it's even the same with us today. Like you get on this train of thought and you start writing, and then something interrupts you, and it's really hard to go back to where you were and what direction you want to go in. And then also when women of Virginia Woolf's time, they were still censored on what they could write about. So when you're in your own space, writing whatever you want, you can write whatever you want, and you're not held under anyone's opinion or anything like that. And so it gives you the freedom to explore different ideas and different techniques, different subjects, and stuff like that. So that's just what I was thinking.
No, I like that. Because it's true. When you write, just like those other writers that were using men's names as their alias, like they could write whatever they wanted and they hid behind the pen, so to speak. And so I guess that's an advantage in writing as well.
Loading. No. I was thinking with the pseudonyms and everything, they could write what they wanted, but it always had to be like, I felt like it had to be in the voice of a man. Like, how would a man write this and still kind of show their? So I never really felt like it was their real voice. I guess it was a character's voice that was trying to portray their feelings and their ideas.
Is there? I can't remember if we read something like with that a woman had to like write to appease her writers, or maybe that was in our class, Britta, the film class. But like writing to the audience, which was mainly male dominant, and writing to please them so that it would be something that they would want to read. So, I don't know.
And it was like, I don't know, maybe whoa. No, I think just when you think about how women were like, there were some women that could read, and I felt like there was a big balance of how they would write. They had to write for the male, but their ideas were a little bit different, and that's what made them so popular.
Nice. So that is 30 minutes. But is there anything else that you guys want to add to this so that I can stop recording and then we can discuss on the side out of live feed?
That's it. That was enough, right?
Nice. All right, Dr. Hancock, hopefully you got your answers.